Who are you? Who are you? You know, it's not as easy a question to answer as we think, is it? Because most of the time we're asking one another, well, what do you do for a living? And we tell not how much money, we tell people we make money. We make money to pay for a place to live and food to eat and a way to provide for our families. And I usually answer the question, who am I, with, I'm a pastor, unless I'm on an airplane and want some downtime, or at a party and I don't want to spend the rest of the evening debating some religious question. But if I answer, when I do, and I normally do, then I wait. Because unless I'm in some sort of church setting, there's almost always some sort of reaction. An instant judgment like, oh, how nice, or a reaction, kind of questioning. And if I sense fear rising, I jump in quickly and say, but not that kind. Lawyers and IRS agents might have the same sort of response. But increasingly in this culture, when people hear I'm a pastor, they ask, well, what does that mean? Of course, I also hear a lot, what do you actually do for more than 1 hour a week? And I assure them, I go to a lot of meetings. Who are you? Can you finish the sentence, I am a person who? Try it sometime this week or today. I am a person who, and I took some time to answer my own question this week. I am a person who needs to see the ocean at least once a week, or I start to feel like something's off in my soul. I am a person who enjoys sharing what I see on the other side of my camera lens. I am a person who struggles with and feels shame over my weight. I am a person who marvels at my husband's willingness to follow me and pick up everything and move to a new city twice. And yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of he and Lance finally arriving here. And I am a person who tries to listen, but often fails, or try to be understanding while at the same time finding it difficult not to be exasperated by people I just can't understand. I am a person who. Or how would you answer, people say that I am, and that can be frustrating because sometimes people may judge your intentions or they may question your competence. But maybe they just don't understand how many things you're trying to juggle in life right now just to stay sane while they say you're impatient or you don't have enough time for them. Of course, maybe you're also hearing, oh, she's great to work with. Or he really goes above and beyond. They're so patient. How can they be so patient? But if only they knew. So Jesus asked his disciples, who do people say that I am? Who do people say the human one, or the more familiar Son of Man? Who do they say this is? And he hears, some say you're a truth teller and a life changer like John, or a visionary like Elijah, or one who both condemns the lack of justice for widows and orphans and strangers and yet gives hope, like Jeremiah and prophets do. And they're all excellent answers. Good job, everyone. But Peter, who do you say that I am? So was that an easy question for Peter to answer, or a really hard one? Was he put on the spot at that moment and expected to answer what surely must have still been a mystery? Who is this guy for whom I gave up my job that I used to make money for my family for some vague promise about fishing for people? Did he impulsively blurt out his answer? And my money's on that. Or did he thoughtfully consider it and reply, it's all making sense now. You're the Christ. Or as most translations say, you're the Messiah we have long waited for. And Jesus confirmed this is true. And then he ordered all who were standing around listening, all of them glad that Jesus put Peter on the spot and not them. He said, don't tell anyone. And in between this confirmation that Peter is right and telling him to keep quiet, in between, some very confusing declarations about Peter being a rock upon which his church will be built, and something about gates and keys and underworld and loosening and fastening. But the likelihood that Jesus actually said something about building his church is less than minuscule. Because Jesus wasn't out there building a church. He wasn't starting a new religion. He was gathering followers to build a community, yes, but church wasn't a word until later. When Matthew wrote his gospel, he was looking back to explain Peter's role in the early church. Because you were asking, well, why him? But Peter was dead when Matthew wrote this, crucified on an upside-down cross in the year 64, and Matthew was written to maybe 20, 25 years later. But that's enough about that. So disciples, who do people say that I am? And then asked Peter, who do you say that I am? And again, he replied that Jesus was the Messiah, and Jesus told Peter he was right, and then immediately, and I mean immediately, like 2 minutes later, Peter got it completely wrong. I mean, so wrong that Jesus called him Satan. So here's what happened. All this is happening, and then Jesus makes it clear to the disciples that it's now necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and submit to an ordeal of suffering at the hands of the religious leaders, the elders, the chief priests, and the legal experts, and that he had to be killed and then be raised up alive on the third day. And Peter took hold of him and began scolding him. He tried to correct Jesus. He said, God forbid, Lord, this can't happen to you. And Jesus turned to Peter and said, get behind me, Satan. You are a stone that could make me stumble, for you are thinking God's thoughts and not human thoughts. Ow. Peter had this soaring revelation. He climbed to the pinnacle of understanding of the great mystery of who this person named Jesus really was. Jesus was a person who was able to heal people. Jesus was a person who made a violent storm calm down. Jesus was a person who needed to take a break sometimes and be alone. Jesus was a person who grew frustrated and at times angry at his disciples' continued inability to see the whole picture. And did you notice that Jesus had just minutes before called Peter his rock? And now he calls Peter a stone. I mean, a stumbling stone. That's a quick demotion. But here's the problem. Peter didn't understand what kind of Messiah Jesus really was. And frankly, not many of us do. I mean, what do you think a Messiah is? And I'll be honest, I'm sometimes not comfortable with this Messiah language because I too kind of get what it means wrong. And yet, upon further examination, I'm in. Here's why. So you think about how we use the word Messiah in popular culture. You'll say, she's got a Messiah complex, right? Meaning she's got a big ego. Or we say, he's going to be our Messiah. He will be our vengeance. He will vindicate us and crush our enemies and restore us to power, which is alarmingly spoken by a number of American Christians right now. I just don't understand. I mean, what would Jesus say about this? I mean, wouldn't it be similar to his reaction to Peter's complete misunderstanding of Jesus? Yes, I am the Messiah, but not that kind. Specifically, not the kind who would act with any kind of retribution or so-called vindication. I mean, that is what people hoped for and wanted from a Messiah who would restore the throne of King David with violence to take up arms and throw off the yoke of Rome. A very understandable desire. But before Matthew wrote his gospel, it had already been proven not to work. So in the year 70, Rome put down, crushed, an attempted revolt. It was known as the First Jewish-Roman War. And Rome completely and utterly destroyed them, the temple. Matthew wrote about Jesus just a little more than 10 years later, leaving that knowledge out of the narrative, but reflecting what Jesus was trying to teach, that he is a different kind of Messiah, not the one that the prosperity gospel teaches, not the kind that damns those people to hell, and definitely not one who advocates violence and retribution, definitely not one who advocates violence and retribution. But what kind is he then? Well, it's right there. The next thing in the story, it's just amazing how this just flows right in. Because immediately after his rebuke of Peter's rebuke, Jesus gathered his disciples around and said, listen up. All who want to come after me must say no to themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. All who want to save their lives will lose them, but those who lose their lives because of me will find them. I mean, why would people gain the whole world but lose their lives? So what did he say? Is take up your cross to serve one another, not to hold it over others, and certainly not ever to use the cross as a weapon. And what kind of Messiah would say such a thing? Like Jesus said, the cross to serve one another. It's certainly not a Messiah or someone with a Messiah complex. It's not someone who is promising revenge, because blessed are the people who are hopeless, and blessed are the people who grieve, and blessed are the people who are humble and pure in heart and peacemakers and who thirst for righteousness. Now, righteousness, not self-righteous, but those who hunger for a world in which the poor are fed and the captives are set free and the oppressed are liberated. That's the kind of Messiah that will actually save the world, and the kind of Messiah I want to follow, by each of us taking up our own cross. It's a joint effort, you understand. It's a partnership, and it's something we do together, each of us embracing who we really are. Who are you, really? I mean, not what you do for a living. How do you finish the statement, I am a person who? So I am a person who tries to follow Jesus and his teachings in order to realize heaven on earth, the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. We pray for it every week. Where no one race is superior, and no one gender is supreme, and no one way of loving is all that's permitted, and no one religion has power over all the others. The cross is not power over. It's power with, or actually better yet, power on the underside, lifting people up. Take up your cross. And no doubt, we will fail, just like Peter, just as often as we will succeed. But Jesus will never give up. I mean, take heart from blessed Peter, who will fail miserably. He won't just deny Jesus 3 times very shortly. You realize on the night that Jesus is betrayed in the garden, remember when the soldiers came? Peter took a sword and cut off the ear of a Roman soldier. That was Peter, which Jesus then restored, because that's not what my followers do. I'm not that kind of Messiah. And yet still, in the end, Peter was the rock on which the church of Jesus Christ was built. Who are you?